Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Téana David. I am the artistic director of the ILLUMINATE Film Festival, and I'm here with Kiso, our interim executive director, and Ky Dickens. Ky is the creator of the Telepathy Tapes, and she's also working on a documentary, which we'll get into a little bit later. But first, I'll tell you just a little bit about Ky's background. She's an award-winning filmmaker, celebrated for her transformative documentaries that tackle complex social issues. They also influence public policy and ignite cultural change. Known as a storyteller at the intersection of film and societal impact, she's received numerous accolades, including the Focus Award for Achievement in Directing and the Changemaker Award for advancing social change through art and film. And just stay tuned. Towards the end, we'll be awarding Ky with a very special award. It's the Teeccino Transformational Media Award. So we're really looking forward to that. To start off, Ky, I have a question that was actually inspired by something that you referenced in the podcast, the Telepathy Tapes. And I was walking on the beach listening to this episode of the Telepathy Tapes and almost fell over because you talk about Liz Gilbert's book, Big Magic, and how that's had a big impact on you. It has had such a profound impact on me, especially the part about ideas finding hosts. Mm-hmm. And I've always felt that there are muses about, and the muses are looking for ways to come through and incarnate, sort of go from the ethereal to the material through us if we're open. Mm-hmm. And so I just loved when you brought that up, because it also resonated with me when I read it a couple of years ago in her book. And I'm curious why you feel that the muses chose you to sort of use as an instrument to deliver the telepathy tapes to the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think Elizabeth Gilbert would say you also have to ask, right? The muse, let them know what you're doing and what you want to work on. And I mean, I think a lot of my life kind of built me up for this podcast, or not even the story, right? To be a steward of the story. I think about so many things, just even growing up and, feeling othered because I was LGBTQ and having people say, like, you can't get married, you can't have kids, you can't, not what you're capable, you can't, you can't do all these things. And seeing these non-speaking individuals being told by the world what they can't do, what they're allowed to do, who they are, what their worth is. I can't imagine the level of that shame and humiliation that comes with their unique experience, but I understood it in periphery from having gone through something similar. Mm-hmm. I think, I experienced a lot of death when I was young, and it certainly made me question just be aware of how ephemeral everything is, and start having big questions early on about why we're here and what it all means, and I think, I had a parent who was very agnostic, and I'd come home from church with my mom and be like, you've come from monkeys. So I always had that kind of spiritual meets science look at things that I think is really important. And I think about a lot of the projects I took on throughout my career. Like the first one I ever did, it was called Fish Out of Water. And that was really, trying to restore like LGBTQ people's worth within their faith communities. Because at the time when that came out, like people were told, like, you're going to hell, and then I did Soul Survivor, which really looked at like why one person survives a huge plane crash when no one else does. Like, and, so I think that I was kind of looking at a lot of these issues that had to do with spirituality, science. And then my career kind of veered into just social issue films and projects, right? Like social access to paid family medical leave and fair VC funding and affordable and accessible Medicare and Medicaid and that type of thing. So, I kind of started just doing what most doc people do, which is tackle big social issues. And after going through my own pain points and, kind of horror stories with 2 deaths of people prime and, they're really important to me, people in the prime of their lives. I said to the big magic muse, I said to the universe, like, whatever I do next, I want to make sure it's about fixing the brokenness in society, or in people, not the brokenness in society. And though that's important, and I love my social issue work, I want to now focus on the biggest questions that I can answer. So give me that. That's the project I want. And I didn't know how it would come. I started reading books on tree consciousness and Ian Stevenson's work on reincarnation and near-death experiences and all sorts of stuff. And then when this crossed my path, when I heard an interview with Dr. Powell, it really felt like lightning, and I do believe that if something's intended for you, it won't miss you. And as far as the muse or the big magic goes, I think it wants to find you working. And I think it wants to work with people who are ready and asking for that project. I do think it exists, though. It's a discarnate consciousness creativity.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I love the fact that we need to ask. So they're ready, but this part that we are active participants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the way I think of it is like it interviews you. Like let the big magic find you working, because if you're just sitting there, I want something to happen, I want this. I mean, it's like, would you hire someone? No. And I think of creativity doing that. I think it looks at each whatever this muse is. We don't understand it, but I do think it's like, are you eager, ready? Are you going to work hard? Are you going to let me down? Are you going to take it all the way? Are you going to crumble under pressure? Are you going to take it? You can take the ball to the end zone. I think creativity does find us with those questions in mind. And
Love
there's
it.
different people for each task, right? Like if someone were asked me to go can you take the ball to the end zone in a documentary about like, music producing, I'd be like, probably not. Well, I mean, that's not like an interest of mine.
Okay, that's just beautiful. Thank you so much. First of all, for showing up, right? Having the skill set, having the interest in asking the question, because what you've delivered is groundbreaking, truly is groundbreaking to bring these stories forward, especially for people that have been shut down for reasons that aren't even quite clear. You are their voice, but you're saying something about being a human that hasn't been said in that particular way. It's engaging, it's exciting, and you didn't back down. So I appreciate you for doing that. And it makes me think of this question that I was going to ask you a little bit later, but maybe the timing is good. To this date, your career, you've been this powerful voice for what we would call SIE, right? Social impact entertainment space. And I love what you said, like broken society, the maybe broken people. With Telepathy Tapes, you've stepped into territory that aligns with what we at Illuminate Film Festival call conscious media. Right? These are stories that are designed to create awareness with a positive impact, right? But often on a deeper, more soulful level, right? Not the outer activism, but the inner activation.
Hmm.
So how familiar were you with this genre beforehand? And then what in your journey with Telepathy Tapes has told you about this audience and how hungry they are to receive it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I was not as familiar with this audience at all. I think my work was really focused on, like you said, social issues, often trying to affect public policy. And I've never had an engagement with like a huge swath of people on such an intimate level, I think. And I knew that when we put this out, I would be hammered by the mainstream media and academia and scientists. And it's hard to change the status quo. It's hard to present something that is really stigmatized. But what was beautiful is I think so many people were ripe and are already ripe for this. And they're probably a little sick of being programmed. Like the reason we didn't get this, when I pitched as a docuseries, we were told, no, people want true crime or high celebrity or, like cutthroat reality. And what is this genre and what is this thing? And it's not marketable. Our algorithms have no template for this. And I remember thinking, I mean, I think there's brilliant people who work at these networks and stuff. They're chained to their mandate. But I just thought, how sad, because there's got to be people that care about this, so because I didn't know, like you said, I wasn't aware of this audience. And so I think it's beautiful because it shows how hungry and deeply interested people are in talking about much bigger themes about life and why we're here and where we're going and seeking for the magic, not the vitriol and the division and the hatred that so peppers our social media feeds and our news channels, right? So I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing that's really been really beautiful is, when I started getting hammered, or the Telepathy Tapes started getting hammered by again, like media outlets or, trying to debunk it. And I was just like, I knew this was coming. The scientists warned me this happens to all of us. It doesn't matter like what, it just stick to it. Don't worry. But I was like, what if the audience like freaks out and walks away? And like the opposite happened. Like people were like coming to the family's defense and coming to spelling's defense and coming to the show's defense. And, like in this really beautiful, powerful way where it's like, in the emails we get of people just being like, we know what's true. We know, how, from parents and non-speakers saying, this is our truth. This is our truth. Like we've seen this as well. Like, don't back down. And I thought that was really beautiful because it was kind of an audience that's like, stop, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I think there's a lot of, you kind of need that when it's, when you do feel kind of like you're at the top of the spear.
Because you're kind of touching on two topics, right? You're touching on nonverbal, autistic children, adults that have been pushed aside, but then also these spiritual principles that are coming through, right? In the telepathy tapes, right? You're talking about love, right? You're talking about these topics that audiences are so desperate and hungry to hear. So you're providing service on several levels with it.
Yeah. 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 And I think that message of love resonates for everyone. I mean, it's just that we've stopped talking about it as often as we should.
So appreciate that, Ky. Actually, our festival theme this year is looking through the lens of love. And Kia and I were speaking earlier about you're doing that as a filmmaker, as a podcast creator. You're clearly looking through the lens of love, the care and respect that you show to the participants, the humility that you bring. It really is admirable. And I know that it allows the people that you're interviewing to open up in a different way, right? We've all seen films where it feels a little exploitive, and you're the absolute opposite of that. In fact, you've clearly created a whole extended family. I mean, they feel so seen by you. Can you talk a little bit about that process as a filmmaker and sort of if there's a setting within yourself that you turn to in order to elicit the open-heartedness that you do from your participants?
Yeah, and I think this group of individuals is so unique because anytime a speller has put themselves forward or, or a family, I feel like they felt like they've been beat up by the press. And it's, people don't understand autism, or they say their kids aren't in there, or they can't believe they're in there. Like the school system doesn't believe they're in there, spelling, the form of communication via a letterboard or independent iPad or whatever that many of these individuals use has been tried to be debunked and stigmatized. So everything touching these families has been a battle. And coming in as an outsider, there's not a lot of trust. And I think it took a year or two to really build a deep, deep trust of this like certainty, like I will not harm you. I'm not doing this to try to exploit all of you and make you look foolish. And I think that's been the constant for most people in the non-speaking community. If they engage at all with the press or media, they're made to feel they look stupid or desperate or silly, or, it's not been good. So I think that trust is really important. And it's the most important thing to me. And, there's 5 non-speaking individuals on the film, advisors on our production team. And through just like other contacts in the community and other non-speakers and other families, like I'm constantly saying, do you want me to continue? Because I know the magnifying glass is on you a lot right now. And it probably feels really difficult because you are existing in the shadows. And the second you say pencils down, it's pencils down because you're at the front lines, and every non-speaker I've communicated with has said, no, keep going, keep going. So I think that's really important. It's just the respect, right? When you're telling someone's story and it's so sensitive and it's like a human rights story, really, of what's on the line for these individuals. It's a lot. And, it's like, that's why you need allies and stuff. And I think there's so many listeners who are allies to these individuals. But from my point of view, it's like, I just need to keep constantly checking in.
I love that. And, going back to something Kia said about it goes beyond telepathy. And sort of telepathy is the way that you've decided to go in, but then it's opening up to all of these, I'm going to call them spiritual truths And you have Rupert Sheldrake, of course, on your podcast. I know Rupert a little bit, and I'm a huge fan of his banned TED Talk, and I recommend that everybody look up Rupert's banned TED Talk, because not only are you creating a safe space for these non-speaking individuals, but for scientists like Rupert, who have been marginalized by the mainstream, he's been made fun of, he's been ostracized by certain other scientists. And, can't we humble ourselves to just recognize that we don't know everything about how the world is created or what it's made up of, and interestingly, the more we learn, the more we realize that ancient mystical lineages have pointed towards truths that are only now revealing themselves, perhaps only because we are collectively ready to understand them or embody them. So I just wanted to shout out Rupert Sheldrake and just also honor you for giving scientists like Rupert a platform to share his deep knowledge and wisdom, and really his thinking outside of the box, which in the end is, guess what? People are going to think, oh, whoops, I wrote him off, 20 years ago. And now, maybe I need to revisit that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so fascinating is, how little we still know, even as far as telepathy, because once the project came out, our inbox got really interesting. And my assistant, Catherine, started telling me, Ky, there are like a lot of people writing about telepathy and Alzheimer's, dementia, and that when these people lose their voices and kind of control of their faculties in their body, like that is how they communicate, but they've never felt they could tell anyone. They thought they'd be made fun of. It was a secret. And she's like, and there's caregivers and parents in this community are often saying like, it is a kept secret. And I was like, what? It was just reflecting what we talked about in the telepathy tapes. And so, that's why we're doing the talk tracks, to keep kind of unpacking our inbox because it's so interesting. And we did a big episode on Alzheimer's and telepathy, and it feels pretty widespread, and people have written books on it. And I was just like, what? It's exactly what we saw with the non-speakers. And so, and the amount of animal telepaths or, communicators that get hired by, the World, Animal Foundation and, different big game preserves and stuff, and being the only people who can really help the game do what they want them to do. And just a lot of the stuff I just dismissed. So I do think the telepathy is everywhere. But what's so beautiful is it's manifesting itself most in people who don't have a voice, right? Non-speakers who are sick because they're in a coma or have a disease or have Alzheimer's or dementia, non-speakers who are afflicted with apraxia, which is what we're looking at in my project, which is like a non-speaking level of kind of severe autism, or animals. And it's pretty beautiful.
I just hired my animal communicator this week. My two cats are fighting with each other, but it's getting all worked out.
I love that.
Ky, I think of you a little bit like an astronaut. You've been out to space. Can you tell us a bit, fellow filmmakers, some advice, right? How do you think filmmakers or anybody in the industry, right? This is a big ecosystem. How can they intentionally bring love into what they create, how they work and how they lead?
I think you have to love your subjects. I mean, it feels so it's like the antithesis of journalism, right? Where you have to stay like super neutral. And I do think that that's okay. Like it's okay to be unbiased. It's okay to not take a position. It's okay to stay neutral. I think all that is okay, but you have to like deeply care about what happens to your subjects, and they have to deeply feel that, because I feel like if someone is going out to exploit someone or throw someone under the bus or to make them look foolish, I think those stories can be quick fun on reality shows, but I think when it comes to like heartfelt filmmaking, I don't think that resonates. I think the reason Telepathy Tapes resonated, or other material that resonates with people resonates, is often because it comes from a place of love. You can feel that the people are being respected. And I do think there's this like trope in Hollywood, which we see it, right? That's like, no, program the grossest, like gutter, like the people talking about each other and people doing this and stabbing each other in the back, and people want that. It's like people watch it the way they watch a car wreck, but I don't actually think people want that. I think that we each have a very deep place in us that is like the 3-year-old that wants things to be fair, that really sees things for what they are, that is in touch with the magic and the spirit and is open to believing in that. And that is part of who we are. It's just that we have ego and layers of experience and of a material society that tells us other things that gunk up all of our just puts layers and layers on our being. And I think we need to find storytellers right now who can like drill right through those layers and get right to the heart of the 3-year-old to be like, you in there, you're still there. And what mattered to you then still matters to you. Like watch and listen because there is love and there is magic and there is the unexplained. And not to believe in it and to talk about it doesn't mean you're foolish. It means that you are curious.
Yeah, curious. And we believe that there's a market for that, right? Just from a business
Yes.
perspective, I think it's really good business to also consider this audience. Proxy markets tell us they're there.
Oh, they are there. They are there and they're bold. And I mean, that is the audience of the telepathy tapes, right? I mean, they are there.
So, Ky, let's talk about your film. When I listen to the podcast, I can hear that you're shooting in the background sometimes. How much did you shoot during the taping of the podcast? How much is there left to shoot? And what can viewers expect with your new film, which I believe is called The Hill?
No, it's called Signal.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I would say there's, what we've shot already will probably be like 20 to 30% of the first act. And so most of it still is being filmed. So we've already gone to Atlanta and Chicago and Connecticut, and we're going to North Carolina next week actually to film the Hill, and we're have more non-speakers descending in this on these grounds in North Carolina that I've ever had in one place in my life. Um,
I just want to put a pin in that. We're going to follow up on you're filming The Hill, because how exactly does one do that? But keep going.
yeah. Um, and yeah, so a lot of the Atlanta stories are intact and kind of going to follow that same, stretch of Houston and John Paul and Katie and Lily. But we have a few other subjects as well. There's two lovebirds that are, around 1920 in Connecticut. They're two non-speakers, Winston and Nina, and their story is now in the project. And Nina's like favorite like communication partner is her speaking neurotypical sister, Natalia. And so that's a very fresh, kind of youthful story. So we're following that. And then one of Houston, who's in the telepathy tapes, one of his friends had telepathically been telling him he's desperate to start spelling. He wants to be let out. Wants to let his mom know he's in there. And they have just recently started like a really intense spelling course. And so we've been filming that. So we'll be there from to watch him become unlocked, which is really cool. And then we're going to follow Amelia as she tries to find the people she's been talking about on the Hill for so long that her mom couldn't figure out who they were. But thankfully, since the tapes have come out, a lot of more people are on Facebook in these groups talking about their non-speaking kids going to the Hill. So we found some of them. So that's going to be really cool.
So cool.
Detective work, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Detective work in other realms too, which is so interesting. I love
Yeah.
that you can talk about this now, like in an interview like this.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little more about The Hill, if you can, just how you can translate this to a film.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why I hired two non-speaking graphics advisors. So, we're going to do a lot with background plate. So we are going to shoot the Hill, but I'm going to have like a Sony Venice shooting at, the most like high resolution raw the whole time so that we can do some graphics and put some stuff in. And then we will have like close-ups and over the shoulder shots and two shots of a bunch of individuals on the Hill. And then we'll start to work with how it looks like when people appear or disappear or show up or congregate and what the whole thing should look like. Because a lot of non-speakers have said to me, it's more of a hill of ideas, and it is more of a consciousness, like non-material space, obviously, than something that we think of as like a total hill. So we were just looking for a beautiful space that had hills in the background and a bit of a hill and, where these individuals be safe. They're not in fear of eloping into a street or something. So thankfully, there's a wonderful organization called Lighten, and they have beautiful grounds in North Carolina. So they've actually offered those up to all of us, which is great. but there'll be a lot of non-speakers around Asheville staying in hotels and stuff in the next few weeks. So that's going to be beautiful. And it's going to be a mix of, live action and GFX. And Lily and Houston are going to be working with our GFX team nonstop to look at like a visual and say, that's it, that's not it, or this is close, or this is how I see it, but not that person. And those are the decisions we're trying to make right now. Like, should we have it be different if every different person sees it, or do we just pick a look and stick with it? Because graphics are so expensive. So those are some of the decisions we're making.
Very cool.
That's a beautiful overlap too, with just like, there's this huge movement of disability inclusion in the entertainment industry, right? And getting people jobs that they're a perfect fit for. So I just love that aspect too.
Yeah, it is cool. We have a non-speaker science advisor and then 2 non-speaking story consultants. And for all 5 of them, they said it was the first job they've ever had. Like, so it's cool for their families too. Like Anthony, our non-speaking science advisor, he said that he finally felt like a man, that for so long his everyone was just taking care of him, and he felt like he couldn't provide anything to the family. So it's really cool that, there's a sense of, I think, worth and purpose, not just from being in the film, but also creating jobs for non-speakers.
Yeah, and honoring their gifts, because they have gifts that we don't. So many gifts we're learning through your podcast. Well, speaking of materializing, I think it's time to invite in Caroline McDougall. Caroline is the founder and CEO of Teeccino, which is a most magical tea company. And Caroline, I'll let you just say maybe a little bit more about your background and then any question you might have for Ky.
Oh my. Well, first, let me tell you that it is an honor to meet you, Ky. I am a super spreader of your tapes because I've told a gazillion people about them. And I've really appreciated them in my own life. But I guess I would say that one of the reasons why I resonated so much, other than the whole human side of the story, is that I have a long trending spiritual life myself, with telepathy involved on the other side. And so, what you did in bringing these stories forth for somebody like myself, very much a speaker in the world, but with a strong inner spiritual life that isn't necessarily part of any organized religion, you really confirm so many of the spiritual teachings that I've learned and heard about. Well, I should say you, the non-speakers, really confirmed that on that other side, where we can't see on an everyday basis, there is really a teeming life of unseen beings with whom we can relate, as well as with whom we can speak with each other as well. So it was tremendous confirmation for me. I started my company, which is called Teeccino. We make roasted herbal beverages, and I started it because I had a dream. So just like you were saying earlier, I'm not even sure if I was asking. I think I was asking at the time, hey, what's my next product? I had this dream in which I said, the next product I'm going to create is a caffeine-free cappuccino, and the name of the product is Teeccino. So 30 years later, I'm still doing Teeccino. It's still my mission in life to bring people a delicious beverage that's healthy for them and that is caffeine-free, so that they don't get all those effects of coffee from it, although lots of people like coffee. But I'm going to unblur myself here for a second because I want to show you a basket that we're going to send you.
Oh, wow.
Appreciation. Well, actually, here's the check that we're donating for your film that we hope will be incredibly successful out soon. And here's this basket of Teeccino, including, there's all kinds of things in here. But my newest one is called Miraculous Mushrooms, Adapt and Protect. So I thought that would be fun to include. But you'll have both Teeccino that you can brew like coffee and Teeccino that you can make like tea, steep like tea, as well as you'll have our gift that we love the Illuminate Film Festival. I've been a big supporter of Téana's and the whole festival team for the last couple of years, and look forward to it coming up on the actual level where we all get to go and see each other and enjoy these films. And I just really hope that your film next year, Ky, will be part of it.
Absolutely. I hope so too.
And then maybe you'll get to come to Santa Barbara, right?
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite place to go.
You're
Yeah,
invited.
we'll make that happen one way or the other.
Definitely
Really,
invited.
really thrilled to be part of your success just by giving you some support
Oh,
and
it's so nice.
acknowledgement.
And thank you, Caroline. We're so grateful to you and Teeccino for all of your support. And it doesn't surprise me that you resonated with the telepathy tapes as much as the team at Illuminate. So what an opportunity for all of us to come together. And Ky, thank you for taking the time. We know that you're very busy shooting. And we just really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us and just offer a peek into your world as a director and as someone who started with a podcast and now is doing a full film that we know will touch even more hearts and minds. So just thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the award and just the conversation and the encouragement. I mean, all of it means so much, and I'm just so grateful. So thank you so much.
We're the tribe that you didn't know that you had, right? Now
Glad,
you
yeah.
have the new family of the conscious media world and the Illuminate Film Festival. This has just been such a meaningful conversation. And I want to thank you again, Ky, for your groundbreaking storytelling and your brave heart. Thank you for doing it. And Caroline, for your generous support of conscious media and for the festival. Ky, your work reminds us that love is not only the message, it's the medium. Right. And thank you for sharing this with filmmakers, because filmmakers, sometimes, we put together pitch decks, right? Sometimes we have to show comps, and this is now a wonderful, you've broken the ground, not only in storytelling, but for filmmakers themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
and we thank our audience today that is tuned in, and thank you for joining us, and be sure to explore the rest of our virtual lineup during this week of the virtual festival. There are a lot more stories here that move and uplift and inspire. With deep gratitude and love, thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you next year at the festival.
All right.
Next year.
Okay. Take care.